Okay. So thank you for coming. You all look familiar from the last 2 times, so we appreciate your repeat dedication to our presentation. So we're going to do brief introductions because I brought someone new this week, and then we'll get into it. And again, please ask questions as we go along. Try to raise your voice so that we can see if, make sure the questions get recorded, and we'll repeat them as well. So as you know from last time, I'm Allie Tucker. I am one of the attorneys with Student Legal Services. My specialty area is in criminal defense, traffic, and criminal misdemeanors in Franklin County. But I also do most of, if not all, our special representation of victims. So victims of assault, of any kind of sexual assault, and I do a lot of work with Cassie Schaefer, who I'm going to let introduce herself in a second here, about public safety planning. So I'm going to let Cassie introduce herself, and then I'll do a little bit about student legal, and then we'll get into the material.
I'm Officer Cassandra Schaefer. I'm a detective with the Ohio State University Police Division. So my role here is law enforcement, and I work on both sides of that, the criminal aspect and the victim aspect. Some of the different roles that I do play here is that I am what's called a rape aggression defense instructor, a RAD instructor. So that is for the women within our community to learn skills in self-defense and survival. So that's a little bit about my background.
Okay, so and Cassie and I have worked together a lot. I use her as a big resource for my cases when I have clients who are concerned about public safety. If I just want to bounce some things off of her and get some ideas about strategies that my clients can use if they're in a tricky situation that's not typical of what we see. So we're just going to run through this because I know we went through these couple slides last time. But as you guys know, Student Legal Services, we are attorneys for students. Every year, our number of students that we represent increases, and that's not because there's more students in trouble. It just means that we're reaching more students, which is great. We want everybody to come into us on the front end of things so we can prevent problems from happening. So we are in our 4th year of service. We do provide representation, so all the way up to in-court appearances in Franklin County, advice. We also do outreach, so like we are here tonight, and we provide referrals and resources. So it's a great place to start if you're not really sure if you have a legal issue, and we'll help point you in the right direction. Do you guys really need attorneys? Yeah, even if you're not involved in actual litigation or a criminal or traffic case, you don't have a pending ticket, we are here for you. There's never going to be a time in your life probably that you're going to have 5 attorneys at your disposal just to sit down and ask questions of. So we encourage it. We would rather give you the advice and, avoid having to represent you. We're probably the only attorneys around that try to advocate so that we don't have to represent you. Okay, so we are here for you. There's 3 areas, and the first 2 are the landlord-tenant. So Molly did her first presentation about this. Lease reviews, issues with your landlord, definitely come and see us. Criminal traffic is what I do. Anything from a speeding ticket, a car accident, all the way up to an M1, domestic violence and assault. And if anybody should be charged with anything more serious, always come and see us because we have referrals for everything. Okay, and then the last area is the civil. That's kind of that other bucket that we've talked about. That was Molly's specialty, and that's kind of the contracts. You bought something, it's not what you paid for, things like that. So we're going to launch right into this session. This is about interacting with the police, public safety, and some other more difficult topics to talk about. So we understand that they're not something typical that you want to sit around and hear about, but I think it's really important for you guys to hear. And I'm going to let Cassie talk to you about interacting with the police because that's who you'd be interacting with. And I think a lot of students have questions about what do I have to do, what's the right thing to do. So I'm going to let you take over from there.
Okay, so starting here with what our job is, we enforce the law. So in the United States, there's a constitution, and within that constitution, we enforce those laws that are within our area. And that just simply means that these are rules that we all agree collectively as a community that we will all abide by, okay? Now, for you all, there's going to be some cultural struggle integrating in with these laws because there's a lot of things that you are accustomed to doing back home that are not the same here, or that you're not accustomed to doing back home that you will have to do here, okay? So one of the things about talking to the police, or if you are stopped by an officer in a consensual or in some sort of incident and I need to talk to you and identify you is that you do have to identify yourself. And quite honestly, it's just easier anyways because most people don't have anything to hide. Am I correct? So when we're asking you to identify yourself, it's so that we know who we're speaking with. There's a lot of different issues that we have to take into consideration as far as safety goes. Our safety, your safety, and then the public safety around us. So that's why we're asking for identification and also so we can document those incidents correctly. Do you understand that? So when you're talking to us and we're taking a report, we need the proper information, especially if we have to go back to it. Or if I refer you to student legal, I can say, this is who I spoke with, and they may need your assistance. So proper identification is a huge help, and also legal. All right? Driving. So how many of you have been pulled over before? I have many, many times. I'm a terrible driver, so he has as well. When you are stopped by a police officer in America, there are things that occur, okay? In Ohio, we have marked vehicles. Have you guys seen our police cruisers around before? Driving around, they have the beacon lights. When those lights are initiated behind you and you see them, you have to pull aside. And the suggestion is when it's safe, you pull to the right side, your passenger side. Now, there's two reasons for that. One, as obviously if you're the person being pulled over for a lawful infraction, a driving infraction, we can safely get over, you're safe, we're safe, and we can conduct the traffic stop. The other thing is, are you aware that in Ohio, you have to pull right for sirens and lights in emergency vehicles so that they can get past you? There's a lot of people that don't know that live here. There's that, so those are the reasons for that. So you'll see flashing lights. When we start air horning you, that means we're trying to get your attention, trying to get you to stop. It doesn't mean that anything's elevated. It's just saying, hey, I need you to pay attention, because we all get engrossed in things, right? We get looking around or thinking about school or something, and sometimes we don't notice it. I'm just as guilty of that, okay? So we got to pay attention. So when we pull to the side of the road, the reason for that is to take us out of the traffic way. So we don't want to stay in the lane and stop right where we're at. And that's something I've run across with students quite a bit. It's just because that's what you're accustomed to doing where you're at. Now, do you guys know to stay inside your vehicles? So when you get pulled over here in the United States, you stay in your car. And my suggestion to you is that you have your hands where the officer can see them. And that solves a lot of problems right there, just so that we can see where your hands are and we know we're safe. And they're going to ask you for your driver's license, your registration if you have it, and your insurance card. Because in Ohio, you have to have insurance on your vehicle, okay? Do you guys have any questions about being pulled over?
You guys also understand that while the police cruiser may be pulling you over, they may also be pursuing somebody else, and they just need you to get out of the way. It could be an ambulance as well. So there is a traffic offense for failing to yield to an emergency vehicle. So if an ambulance is coming behind you and you're not getting over, that is a traffic infraction, okay, that we have to go to court for. So I see this a lot too with domestic and international students. They're just not paying attention, and we're not asking, the law isn't suggesting that you jerk over to the side of the road and make yourself in an unsafe situation. If there is no safe place to pull over, put your blinker on and get over as soon as possible. But if you don't, it looks like you're not complying, okay? And we know that's not your intention, but it's going to raise the officer's awareness. It's just going to make things a little bit less easy for you. And keep your seatbelt on, because we're assuming that it's already on. Don't take it off. That's part of the whole don't get out of the car. Leave it on. You don't want it, it's a violation to not have it on. So leave it on. And I do want Cassie to touch upon that not every interaction with the police is hostile, okay? Because part of their job is public safety, and we all violate the traffic laws, okay? It's just part of life. I've gotten speeding tickets, and you get pulled over, and it feels horrible, and it is a pit in my stomach when I see the lights, but you do what you gotta do. It's not the end of the world, and it's gonna be okay, but you're gonna make it worse if you panic and don't pull over, okay?
And think about when you're inside the vehicle, once you have your hands up, just relax. Mm-hmm. Don't start moving around trying to find everything, because if it's not where it's reachable right away, then it's just not worth it until somebody's there and you talk to them and they tell you what you want. And then that way, the officer isn't walking up and seeing you dart around looking for things, and it might appear as it might elevate their awareness and elevate their anxiety a little bit. And that's just because of some of the things that have happened in the past. So everybody pays for the sins of the past, right? So because of things that have occurred, violent encounters, just stay and relax. And 99% of the time, the interaction is going to be very, very professional, very matter of fact, and you'll get through it in about 10 to 15 minutes at the most. I've been pulled over, I have been ticketed. I know the looking at the fine is not a pleasant thing, but it's better than, the alternative, which is going to jail or it being escalated to a point where it doesn't need to be.
And lastly on this issue, if confronted with an officer on the street, I just want to break that down a little bit. You don't have to, start a full-on conversation, but you do have to identify yourself. So provide identification or provide identifying information so that they can make sure maybe they're looking for somebody who did something really bad and they want to make sure you're not that person. They have to be able to make that decision. So if you don't have an Ohio driver's license, give them your international ID, give them your Buck ID, anything that can tell them your name. If you have a social, great. If not, just give them as much information as you can. That is required, okay?
And also know, because of our relationship with the city, if you're with the city and you don't have an Ohio or a driver's license of any kind or a state ID of any kind, that your passport isn't the greatest source of documentation who you are. Plus, I really want to discourage you from carrying your passport around because people will take those and steal them. Okay, so what we want to do is there are lots of ways to get ID cards, but you do have your Buck ID, and the officers that you're interacting with can confirm that you're a student here through our dispatch center. So there's other avenues of identifying you, and as long as you have that picture and your name is on there, there are different ways to go about it, okay? So let's really concentrate on leaving those passports at home, okay?
Good point.
Passports are sold on the black market or on a illegal market. So, and it happens all the time here at Ohio State that people's passports are stolen. And sometimes it's not even for that. They may trash them or something because they're stealing your entire book bag. And if your passport's in that, now you're in a little bit of a pickle, okay? A little bit of a mess. So carry what you need as far as documentation goes. And your Buck ID, if you don't have a driver's license or something like that, a state ID card's like $20, is it? 20 bucks. So you just go to the BMV, it's the same exact thing as a driver's license without driver's privileges. So it still has your information on it. And those are great because there's a little number on there that ties to your identification. It makes it very easy to identify you. And then you can keep the passport at home.
Okay, go ahead.
Are you the campus police?
I am. So I'm a police officer here at Ohio State.
Do you have like a physical location?
Where the police station is? So we have the main police station is at 901 Woody Hayes Drive. Do you know where the Adventure Rec Center is? It's out on the west side of the campus.
West side.
At Kenny and Woody Hayes. So that where that climbing wall is, we share that parking lot.
Any other questions about that? We're going to talk about some public safety issues next. So I do want to talk about public safety because I have definitely represented some students on varying issues, but a lot of it has been about, how can I be safe around campus? I think students tend to bury their heads in the phones and really not be aware that Columbus is still a city, and it's not that hard for people who don't attend Ohio State to migrate towards campus, and a lot of you guys live off campus. So you guys need to be aware that you are still living kind of a city within a city, and we want to talk about safety, and that was the passport piece of it, but I feel like you can talk a lot about public safety because you've helped me out with a lot with that stuff.
Well, we talk about with our local students and our international students about safety because this is not a gated community, meaning that anybody can get onto this campus because it is public. So what we want to think about is what we're carrying every day and what is it that somebody desires to take from us, which is phones, computers, things that are valuable like that, okay? So when it comes to walking on and off campus, and I used to be guilty of this too, and I heard this great tip. Do you sometimes talk on the phone while you're walking because it makes you feel a little better? We've all done it. We've been there. So instead of walking on and off the campus while talking on the phone, okay, because what if something happens while you are walking and talking and somebody calls the police? Do they know where you're at? Probably not a very good location. They're not really sure where you left from because we have different, let's say, libraries. You're at the library. You're walking back to your house. What does that mean to the person on the phone when they call the police? So I have a little suggestion that you, if Allie and I have decided that I'm going to walk over to my place, and I'm going to call her ahead of time and say, hey, I'm leaving the main library. I'm going to be walking through the main oval, okay, up 15th Avenue to Indianola to my house, and I should be there in about 15 minutes. And then I hang up the phone. So then I put the phone away, and then I can pay attention to what's going on around me. I can see if somebody's following me. I can hear if somebody runs up and things like that, which you can't do when you're on the phone. If something was to happen to me because in 15 minutes she calls me and says, I didn't hear from you, and she calls back and she still doesn't hear anything, or my phone goes right to voicemail, she has better information for the police. She knows where I left and what time. She knows my path of travel, where I was walking, and she knows where I was going to end up, which as a police officer gives me really good information to start looking for you. Where the other way around, when you're walking and talking, nobody knows where you're at exactly. So it's just a safer way to do it. Plus, when you put your phone away, you're not telling people what you have. So if she's a bad guy and I'm walking like this, can she clearly see what I have? So if it's put away, am I as good of a victim because she's not really sure if I have the phone she's looking for? So it's just better decision making, that's all. And it does feel better to talk to somebody, but it's safer not to. It's safer to let somebody know, okay? Minimizing what you carry, again, with the passports, your social security cards, your checkbooks, any of those things that you don't need, leave those home, okay? It will be easier. You can do everything right. You can make sure you're being very, very safe, but sometimes things still happen, and then we can minimize our loss that way. For securing, do you guys drive to campus? Do any of you drive, or do you drive? Okay. Make sure you keep all of your valuables out of view in your vehicle. So put them in your trunk where they're hidden. So we have people that come onto this campus that look for things like change or GPSs or even just the wires hanging out around that can indicate that there might be something valuable within the vehicle, and they will break your window and get into the vehicle. So any even loose change, and I'm talking pennies, they will break in to get. So we keep all those things put away and out of sight. They're going to skip your car and go to the next one. They want easy targets. Very, very easy targets.
Yeah, I want to, just from personal experience, my and my husband's cars have been broken into 3 times. Okay, so once when I was in law school, because I had a really old car and I had one of those stereos that you could easily just remove, so that was gone. And then in law school, when I was working at the public defender's office, I was at a holiday party with all attorneys, and my car was parked on High Street, and I didn't have my GPS out, but I had the suction thing on the window where you can mount it. Gone. And I could care less about the GPS, but let me tell you how annoying it is in the middle of winter to have a broken window and have to try to get home. And then a third time, my husband's car was broken into. We ran into CVS for 3 minutes after we were at the gym on a Sunday morning in Upper Arlington. And it's a smash and grab. They saw my gym bag and they took it. So it's a crime of opportunity. It has nothing to do with the kind of car you have. They want to see what's available. I am a stickler for it. I put everything away, including just the charger for my cell phone, because I'm afraid they're going to think that there's a cell phone in here, even though there isn't, and I don't want to deal with a shattered window. I put everything in the trunk of my car, and I have an SUV, so I pull the shade so you cannot see anything. Okay, I am like hyper about it. I cannot explain to you guys how annoying it is to have to deal with it, and your insurance rates are going to go up if you make claims for it. So please, it is a crime of opportunity and is a huge hassle.
And I think a window's right around $250 to $300, so it's very expensive if you don't report it. So just taking 2 minutes and putting things away will save you a lot of hassle.
For sure.
Now, let's say for whatever reason something still happens. Your phone is still stolen. Oh, the other thing I want to touch on, guys, for securing valuables and property, I realize that you're in the buildings and your stuff should be safe. You should be able to leave your things here on these desks or at a table in the library, but you cannot do that. People will still take your stuff. Okay, so they will still steal your valuables. They will take it very quickly. They can take your computer, your phone, your book bag, and your books. Those are all valuable to them. And we take many, many reports every year of items that were left in the library because they went to the restroom real quick and then they came back and it's gone. So you need to take your valuables with you, unless you're in a study group and somebody can actually watch it that you know. Don't ask a stranger to watch your items. I would say that unless you know them, don't leave it, okay? Because we do have people that look like students that are of student age that blend in very, very well. That'll say, oh, absolutely, I'll watch your items for you, no problem. And that might be the same person that takes it, okay? Now, another item to help you when something is stolen, I want you on a piece of paper to write down the model number and the serial number of the item that are expensive. So any electronics, bicycles, anything like that. Write those serial numbers and those model numbers down. If in the event that something is stolen from you, I can enter it into a national database that reports back to us when things are sold. They're not sold all the time to a place that has to report, but your chances are much better at getting your valuables back that way. Go ahead.
Two questions.
Okay.
First of all, the cars will be in the parking lot. So you mean we put everything away?
Yes.
Including like
Oh, especially your bag.
Especially the bag.
especially.
They
So-
want the bag.
So
So
if we put, if we leave the car, we should take the bag with us.
if you can take it with you, that's great, or lock it up in the trunk or somewhere where it can't be seen.
That's the SUV, and there's no trunk.
Right. Do you have the screen that pulls out? So sometimes there's like a
Sometimes
little
what you can
roller
do is you can
shade
throw a blanket over it.
or a blanket over it even, just anything to cover it to keep it from being obvious what it is.
What I usually do is I put like this, so it looks like black. Would that be okay?
I would say that it just depends on the criminal,
Or,
okay?
the other
Most of them
thing,
aren't that
My
sorry.
suggestion is take it with you.
okay, yeah. The other thing you said, the phone charger is okay to put, leave it in the car.
I would put it in the center console.
I
So-
would tuck it away.
Yeah. Don't
Hide
let it be
it.
seen because all I had up was the Garmin, the mount that you can put it on, but nothing in it. And they broke into my car because they knew there was a Garmin in the car. So they're gonna assume that if they see a charger that there's something valuable in the car.
Oh,
Right, so just push the cord away where you can't see it. So in my car, the center console opens up and I take the whole wire and just dump it in there and shut it.
Yeah.
No change.
Bags and purses are prime.
And bags and purses are great, especially on a college campus because you all are carrying textbooks, computers, iPads, all these different items that are worth really quick money to people that want to victimize you. So I can take this book bag right now and I guarantee you I can make money off of it. It's just crime of opportunity.
That's my second thing. So when I was in college in Illinois, my roommate, I really don't think of that. So he knows how much money I put. So if I put $40 in my wallet, he took 35. So I didn't realize. I just see every time I put in the money, it's less. And then at the end of the semester, my textbook is gone.
Yeah.
And then realizing probably it's him. Like I never suspected until then. And I went to the school bookstore. It's there. So it's pretty sure that he did that. My roommate. But like what? I mean, I have no evidence, like direct evidence of that. So I report that to police, and nothing happened.
We'll talk a little bit more about that. The reason they couldn't do anything is probably just lack of probable cause because you weren't able to account for everything very well. Now, if I set my wallet here and I walked out and I came back and I checked it and she was pocketing money and I knew that was my money, that's a different situation. But that sounds like it went over a long period of time. So it's really not that stability you need to charge somebody. And you could probably have presented it to the prosecutor and they probably weren't going to take it. But at least they had the report so that if he victimizes somebody else, they can refer back to that and say, we've had the same issue with this person before. This is a pattern of behavior. Your textbook, other than having a video to show who sold it, and they should, I don't know if they took an ID card like they do here in Ohio or not, that would have been your proof for that. However, I'm not really sure how they work the crime there, what evidence they need. But here, I know I can get a picture from a camera, and I have more evidence to substantiate, hey, this individual stole from his roommate and he sold his property. So, and that's just something, unfortunately our students do victimize each other. They do steal from each other. So you've got to kind of watch yourself with everybody until you actually really know them.
Yeah, and I will say that these crimes of opportunity, smash and grab, there's really very little that the police can do unless there was surveillance on your car, which usually is not the case. So in all three instances, I filed reports, and in only one of them, there happened to be an independent witness who wrote down the license plate. That's the only reason that anything ever happened, and it's just there's no other information. They're not gonna wipe down your car for DNA to figure out who it was. I mean, it's quick, they're gone. And I didn't have the serial number for my Garmin, so I had no clue. It was just over. And I would say just to bring it home in terms of how serious it is, I think for me, the annoyance with the window was very annoying, but I felt very violated. Personally, just knowing that somebody had been in my car, it really made me feel weird and just very uneasy. So it's so avoidable. And I just want to caution you guys because I say it to my family members, and my own mother didn't listen to me when she was taking care of my son, and she left her purse in the back seat, and they were at a park in a suburb in the middle of the day with my son. That purse was gone. And my dad's car smashed. They had to stay an extra week to get the car fixed. So it's going to happen, and I really don't want it to happen to you guys because it's a horrible feeling. Let's talk about what they do if it actually happens to them.
Okay, so if you're a victim of a crime, okay, which is anything from, theft or somebody's made threats or anything like that, there's certain things that you cannot do here. One is threaten or put hands on you, which means touch you in any way, okay, or steal your stuff, okay, your belongings. You want to call the police and make a report. And we have a little bit of an issue with getting people to make a report, okay? And it's not just international students because you're not really positive on how to do so. It's even our local homegrowns who just don't want to take the time to do it. But it's hard for the police to identify patterns and to get the evidence of that there is a certain person to identify a suspect without the reports. If they're too scattered, we can't look at a pattern. But when we get all the reports coming in, okay, we know where to look, we know what time. So you call the police. Do you all have the, and I seriously, I meant to bring a thing of cards, I apologize. But you can call the police number here, which is 614-292-2121. It's all over the campus. And say, I'd like to make a report of a theft. Let's just say we're looking at solely a theft offense. And then from that point, an officer is going to show up and take your information, find out what is it that was stolen. Do you have the serial numbers? Not. They're going to ask you all the same questions of the suggestions I gave you about writing everything down. They're also going to ask you an approximate value of that item. Okay? If you witness a crime, I'm going to ask you don't interject with what's going on. Okay? Obviously, if it's a life or death situation and you feel compelled that you have to do something, I completely understand that. However, if you see somebody steal somebody's items, the best thing you can do for another person is be a very good witness. You want to know what they're wearing. Is there any particular distinguishing characteristics about that person, like a tattoo was on his neck of stars and it looked like a name, and he had a bushy beard, or looking for characteristics that he can't change. Clothing is great, but it is very easy for somebody to take a shirt off and take a pair of pants off and be in a shorts and a t-shirt all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. So if you can find things that are distinguishable about them, the way they look, how dark their skin is, how light their skin is, if you can tell they're black or white or Asian or Indian, all those things are very, very helpful to the police. And you're doing a better service to your comrade, your community member, than you are trying to chase them down and grab a hold of them and maybe getting hurt yourself. And we want to avoid that, okay?
License plate numbers?
License plate numbers. What color was the car? Did the car have any characteristics? Oh yeah, the front end of that was smashed on the passenger side. It had a big dent in it. That's actually really helpful. Even if you don't get a full license plate, if you can just remember the first couple of letters, or even if you mix up one or two, it's very, very helpful for us. Knowing that there's cameras around campus is great, but know that they're not always trained on something specific, right? That information that you give us and you say, it was I think it was a blue Honda Accord and it had a missing hubcap. Well, that's something that the cameras can start looking for in that area to see which direction of travel it took. So being a good witness is a great thing. And actually, you all as community members do more for us in that capacity than you do chasing somebody down.
Yeah, from our perspective, I'll just tell you that there's nothing, harder for me to tell a client that, when I say, we can't do anything. I've talked to the officer and they have worked the information that you gave them, and there's just nothing more they can do. And I think that's really hard to explain to any victim of a crime because you feel like you're being re-victimized, but there's only so much we can do with limited information. So the more information, the better. Get out your phone and start texting, or getting in your notes and write down the license plate number. Do whatever you can, and then call the police and report. Cassie, can you talk a little bit about 911 versus non-emergency?
Okay, so there's a couple of different things about 911, especially here on the campus, okay? If you dial 911 from a hard line, meaning a phone line within a building, that's going to go to OSU PD, okay? What changes is if you call 911 from your cell phone, it's more than likely going to go to the city dispatcher or the county dispatcher. That means there's going to be a little bit of lag on it getting to us, depending on the crime, who's going to respond. So if you call and you say, I'm in Lazenby Hall room number 34 and my phone was stolen, you're going to be paused for a second and they're going to say, okay, that's on the city, hold on 1 second, and then the county will transfer you. They'll say you went there first. You repeat yourself to the city, they may stop you and say that's on OSU PD, and they're going to transfer you again, okay? What changes is if this is a crime where there's a public safety risk, and you'll be giving information. Let's say it's somebody came in and robbed Allie. I'm sorry, my brain is so fried right now. You saw her being robbed, okay? And you called 911 and you say, I'm in Lazenby Hall, I just saw a gun in room 34. They're going to start sending officers anyways because of the public safety risk, and they're going to get us the information. So there's going to be a little bit of a difference on how it's answered depending on the call. But no, if you call within, you use the emergency phones outside, you call 292-2121 or 911, all of those calls are dispatched right to our center, okay?
So 911 is true emergency, like it's a crime in progress, you've just witnessed something like Officer Schaefer just described. Non-emergency is my car was broken into and I'm standing here, it is a judgment call, and I don't think you'll misuse it, but I have certainly had people who have had a little bit too much to drink and pick up the blue phones, and it's not funny and it's a crime. So just avoid that, because it's a bad idea. But I've never seen somebody in trouble for calling 911 because they thought it was an emergency, but really it was a little bit less than an emergency. Okay, so it is important to make reports. And like we talked about last week, you can file crash reports yourself. So that is something that you should certainly be doing. Okay.
And the other thing about if you call 911 and then you realize it's not an emergency,
hang up.
stay on the line, don't hang up. Okay? Because what happens is all of a sudden now we have a hang up, which could possibly be another public safety or a person's being injured or is sick and dying or something in that nature. So they're going to come flying. So if you just stay on the line and all you simply have to say is, I'm sorry, this isn't an emergency, but I do need to make a report. All they're going to do is switch you to another line. That's all. It takes one split second for them. They are very accustomed to it. They do understand that that happens. So don't feel like you have to hang up. Just on a side note, when you do use the phones in the buildings, when you dial 191 for the next long distance number, sometimes people dial 911 and we get a lot of emergency calls and you hang up and then you don't want to answer again. It's okay to pick up the phone and say, hello, and they'll say 911, is this an emergency? And you can simply say, no, I'm sorry, I misdialed. And you're not in trouble for anything, okay? And we're going to send somebody until we find out if it's an emergency or not, okay?
All right, so, Kathy talked about this a little bit at the beginning. Everybody who is physically in the United States has to abide by the laws of the United States. So it doesn't matter if you don't understand them. Ignorance is not an excuse. So that's a lot of pressure on international students to just know these laws. A lot of individuals have never been here before. If they have, it's been for short visits. So we want you guys to be aware of the laws potentially that you could break or the laws that are meant to protect you. Okay, they are meant to protect people from being victimized by others. And we listed just a couple potential crimes that we've seen, which is theft, which we've been talking about a lot, trespassing, underage drinking, domestic violence, and assault. So we're going to transition now to talk about those issues a little bit more and just talk about, this is the last one about off-campus safety that we just want to make sure you guys are aware of. You're living in these off-campus homes. We suggest this last bullet point, OCHEP. This is a program provided by Ohio State. They will come out to your house and inspect it to make sure it is safe. They will bring someone from the fire department. We highly recommend that all of you living off campus take advantage of this.
Absolutely, it's great.
It's really important. Smoke detectors, it's the first thing you should be checking when you move into a property, and you should not be waiting for a landlord to change the batteries. Go and spend the $10 or whatever it is and change them. Do yourself a favor. Smoking, you got to be very diligent if you're going to be smoking. Make sure those cigarettes are out completely before leaving or going to sleep or anything like that. Did you have anything to add about that stuff?
If you have any issues with these, the off-campus living and commuter services is very, very good about assisting you with what to do with a smoke detector or something. If you don't want the visit but you do need something and you're not really quite sure, they can assist you with that, okay? And they're very, very good. I've worked with them many, many times. Willie Young and those guys really do care. And if you have a question, you're not quite sure where to go with it, contact them and they will help you out. Contact them, they will help you out, okay?
Yeah, they also have window alarms, right?
Yes.
They have alarms that you can install. I think they're free.
They are free.
So why not, get them. Just locking windows, make sure there's blinds up so people can't see inside. Most people are good, but like we said before, there are bad people in this area, and being able to see inside is just a whole host of problems.
Also, I know it doesn't seem like you should have to, but lock your doors even when you're home.
Yes.
Because people the undesirable people that are trying to steal your stuff all day will go up and down the street and try doors on the front of the house and the back of the house. So windows being locked, doors being locked are very, very important, especially if you live by yourself.
Yes.
So even if you're home, lock everything up because they'll try to creep in and take your stuff.
Even the second floor, third floor, the windows should be locked.
Now, see, I have a prime example. Friends of mine live in German Village. It's a very nice area. And they had their second floor window open on their brick house that has nothing under it. And somebody came in through that window and burglarized their home.
Wow.
So if they have a will, they have a way. So if they see a crime of opportunity, if they see a window open, they know, again, they know you all have computers and they know you have textbooks and they know you have the things they want. Every student here does. Every professor here does. All of us employees, most of us do. So we've got to be very diligent, even in our own home, to keep it locked, everything locked up. Now, when you're home and you want to open the windows, that's perfectly understandable. And hopefully you have screens and things like that. And if you don't, then I would approach your landlord and say, hey, is there a way we can make this safer so that somebody can't just climb through my window when I'm sitting at the house?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hang
Yes,
on,
sir.
go-
I have a question. That also like have policy smoking-free area,
Okay.
and I live in a Bucket Village, it's still in the campus area. If I see like people smoking and I feel like disturbed, can I like call the police?
Well, that's a policy issue. So
Call your
that's something
landlord.
you're going to have to take up with the Buckeye Village, your resource center there, Heather Dwyer, the people that run Buckeye Village. There's a difference between policy and criminal law. I handle criminal law. I am here for safety. That's my job. When it comes to something like smoking, like there's a smoking ban on campus, the only people that can really enforce that are the university. And really when the security guards go to talk to somebody about that, they're saying, can you please put that out? And they may take their information at the most. But there's no criminal action for me to take.
You
okay?
should call your landlord for sure. Email them, put it in writing.
Yeah.
I have
Oh, you have, that's right, you do have a question.
question regarding my own experience a couple of years ago. Actually, that was two experiences. Once I was sitting in McDonald's and there's a native, local American. He seems to lost his job and he sat by me in another seat and keeps talking to me that like assaulting me like because I look like Chinese.
Mhm.
Keep saying fuck American Chinese, fuck Chinese American like this. So what should I do?
Well, an incident where, like a time when somebody's sitting next to you and quite honestly, without, other than threatening you, he can sit and do those things. You can probably look at a little bit disorderly because it is causing an issue because it's causing you alarm, okay? There's a threshold on the alarm. So, but he's intimidating you for a reason. Quite honestly, he picked you out because you are an international student and he looked at you and thought, well, I could probably intimidate him enough to give me something. And that-
Actually, he's just complaining.
And he might be just
He could have
complaining.
been drunk.
He could have, yeah, he could have been intoxicated, he could have been high on drugs or something like that. He also could have mental illness as well.
If he was not drunk and I feel he was in an unpleasant period. Maybe he lost his job because so many international students.
My guess is he saw that you're an international student. This is just my experience, is that he honed in on you because you're different. And he knew just by saying hello or something you didn't speak English. So then he sat down to you, next to you. And that was his,
He was sitting there eating too.
okay, well,
Yeah, I mean-
the best thing to do is get up and move.
Yeah. Remove yourself.
Or the McDonald's manager to
I mean, you could, but sometimes there's just a time where it's okay to just say, you know what, this isn't worth my time or my energy, and I'm going to move and let him have that space, and I'm going to go get a new space, and that's absolutely fine.
seems make me feel that I'm timid.
No, I don't think so.
Do anything or-
I'm a cop, and that's what I would have done.
Me too.
Okay, I would have just removed myself from the situation because it's not worth my time and energy.
No, that was what I was thinking. And second experience, when I was riding my bicycle home, and it was several times that same guy riding a bicycle, also local people, and he seems also homeless, and he was circling me and say some insulting words like "you internationals are illegal here, you should go away," and he tried to provoke me by
I would say he's probably more cowardly, and I understand that that's a blow to your like ego and masculinity because of the culture you do come from. However, when people try to bait you like that, you're going to lose. Because what's going to happen is you're going to turn around and you're going to grab a hold of him or something, and you're not going to have the, for lack of a better word, the evidence to say, well, I felt like he was going to hurt me, because he didn't, he didn't indicate those things. However, there is a way to combat that, and it's simply removing yourself by going into a public place, going to the UDF. And when somebody's circling you like that, that is a much stronger case to call the police and say, I am being harassed by some homeless man. He's not leaving me alone. He's riding his bike around me. He's making threatening, I feel threatened by him. This is what he looks like. And they will respond. So those are two very different situations, and there's a couple of different ways to handle them. Public places are great, especially when you're walking. Knowing what things are open at night is a big, big help, because you can see and feel when something's going wrong. You guys know what I'm talking about, when you get that little gut feeling like something's not right. I simply just walk into a UDF or something and just remove myself from outside and try to figure out what's going on. And that's my suggestion to you is, on those, try not to be in the alleys and things like that where you could be alone.
There was once I was jogging in the tomb, and I encountered that guy, and he was circling around me for like from this end of the tomb to that end of the tomb. He was circling around me.
And that's unfortunate, but I think you handled it. You made it out okay. Nothing happened.
No, he's not trying to hurt me, but he's like that he tried to intimidate me. And, seemed to make fun of me, and eventually he felt that I'm not afraid. I was not afraid of him because he encountered me like at the beginning of this tune. I didn't went away, but I keep working through the tune without anybody else around. He felt I was not afraid of him, and he tried to make another try, and he was there was two streets, and one directly was what I want to go, and he picked that one and was standing by the street. So try to further intimidate me to change my route. And I didn't change, and I just went through shoulder by shoulder with him. And I was prepared. If he attacked me, I will counterattack. So I think he felt that, and he didn't say anything. But in this case, if he really attacked me and I attacked back or hurt him somewhere, am I responsible for anything?
No, because once somebody has shown that they are going to do you bodily harm, and you feel that that's what is imminently going to happen, then you have the right to defend yourself. But just words, 99% of the time, aren't just going to be enough. Okay? So the way you handled it was fine, and you felt like
I
you...
know it's not encouraged by you because you try to let us go to the company place, but that's my way home. So, I actually after that he never bothered me anymore because he know I'm not afraid of him.
Good.
For sure.
Good.
But in that case, if I fight back, in the case he attacked me and I hurt him somewhere,
Then he made a bad decision.
Nobody was around. Nobody was around to prove
Yeah.
that I'm not the attacker.
But based on experience, an officer is going to hear these two stories, and they're going to be able to go, one of these doesn't sound right. So even if he attacked you, you beat him down to a pulp, and he said, I did nothing, he just came up and attacked me, that's not going to sound right. Because it just doesn't make sense. So once they get your story, and then they talk to him again, and they're going to go back and forth until they get exactly what they need. And there's different ways to tell wounds and punches and things like that. So there's other things we're looking for than just your encounter of what happened.
What I did is I talked to the police on campus.
That's
I
good.
went to your department and went to the legal service to make a record. Then in the next day I keep using the route just in case if he appears and keep doing that to me and there's a
That's good.
Very good.
I didn't encounter that.
That's
Good job.
All right,
What'd you have, sir?
Yeah, so two things, like one thing that you usually hear like is if you meet someone who's free and wants some money and you say no, they block, then what should I do?
Well, I'm going to tell you that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
That's a very rare thing to happen, okay? We'll talk more about that here in a little bit, but if somebody's asking you for money, my suggestion is to tell them, no, I have no money, okay? And we're going to talk more about that because I think that's a really, really tough subject for you guys, and there's a lot of different things that I see as an officer that happens to international students, but we're going to move on to the next slide, and I promise we're going to
Yeah.
hit that because I want to make sure we do touch base.
And yeah, we'll definitely get back. So we do need to transition into this. I just want to talk about social media and talk about relationships and any kind of violence involving intimate partners. I think it's important for you guys to know. So social media, briefly, just be careful what you put online. Accounts should be private. You should not be accepting friend requests from people that you do not know. I look up almost every one of my clients on Facebook because I want to see what everybody else is seeing. So please be aware of that. You don't need to be checking in everywhere you go, okay? If you're in a confused relationship, maybe you don't want that person to know where you are all the time, okay? If you're going out of town, please do not post it on Facebook. I have friends that are like, traveling to blah, blah, blah from, it's like, come and rob me because we're not home, okay? These are not, if it's private, I guess that's a little bit better, but you're just basically saying, we're gone for a week, so if you want to come and steal everything that we own, go for it, because we won't know who you are, and we'll never know. So, blocking, I'm all for it. If you're getting unwanted phone calls, block them. Unwanted people on social media, block them. The social media sites aren't super helpful, so when you report somebody to Facebook, okay, that's great, but you got to take it on yourself to block people, show us that you're doing everything you can to get them to leave you alone, and always come and see us, because if you've done that and you're still not getting anywhere, I'm happy to help you. So we're running out of time, and we do need to hit on these last two subjects, which are touchy. And we want to talk about sexual assault. Okay, so do you want to
Sure.
define it?
So there's a real push on American campuses to get the information out about sexual assault and what is consent, okay? Sexual assault is rape, okay? Any penetration of anything on the body. I don't care if it's your finger, your penis, your toe, something you use, like a pencil, it doesn't matter what it is, okay? Now, sexual assault is when somebody does not want to engage in sex with you and you want to anyways and you take it. This can be a huge cultural issue, especially for our women that come from international countries, because a lot of times women don't have the right to say no somewhere else. Here in America, it doesn't matter what country you're from. If you violate this law, you will be charged, and it is anywhere from a felony in the 3rd degree to a felony in the 1st degree.
And you're certainly going to get kicked out of school.
And you're certainly going to be leaving this establishment, and probably maybe even losing everything you've already worked for, okay? Now, it's not accepted behavior. So I have walked out of classes before programming and seen a couple fighting and him grab her, and that's okay somewhere else. And we've broken that up because that's not okay here. Okay? So even if you're married, even if you're dating, even if you are drinking, doesn't matter, family member, partner, any person, doesn't matter who you are. If Allie and I go out and she says no, okay, we're good to go. I'll see you later. Thank you. It stops right there. And guys, you might not like it, but the woman has the last say. Even if you're engaged in sex and she says, you know what, get off. It's done. It's over. And you know what? You don't need that in your life to try to be all masculine and take what you want, because that's what's that's what you're accustomed to in your old country. This isn't the same. Okay?
And I want to add, I meet with probably every single person who feels though they've been sexually assaulted, okay? 99% of them are somebody that they know. It is a boyfriend, it is a friend, it is a girlfriend, it is a friend of a friend. I have had one case in my entire time at Student Legal Services where somebody was raped by a stranger. One.
9 out of 10 victims know their attacker, whether that's somebody you've loved, once loved, or has a different definition of what your relationship is. And that hasn't changed over the span of time, okay? And actually, for a predator, it's better to know you because they know your inner workings. There's a lot of psychology behind somebody sexually assaulting another person. Sexual assaults also occur in domestic violence situations. Okay, so this is a power play. And we have to recognize it for what it is. Now, what to do when you've been sexually assaulted. Also, guys, don't think you're out of the woodwork because 1 out of 33 men are sexually assaulted in their lifetime. Okay? So there's a couple of different courses of action to take. And I implore you, if you have a friend that is sexually assaulted or you are, seek resources. Now, everybody thinks that the only way to start is to go to the police. Now, as a police officer, I want you to come to us because I want to put that person in prison because that person does not deserve to be free, okay? And there's certain evidence and there's certain plans of action that we need to put into place so that we can collect evidence, so that we can get your story, but we also identify that there needs to be certain time periods for the victim to deal with it. I also understand as a police officer why it would be very difficult to make a police report. So then I ask that you look at other resources, whether it's here on campus and there's great resources available, or even if you just go to Student Legal and say, I'm not really sure what I need to do here. So if you've been sexually assaulted, there are a plethora of numbers to call here on this campus. And also know that there's different tracks. There's the student conduct course of action. There's the criminal course of action. There's the Title IX course of action. These guys are very well trained in how to handle those things. And everybody's going to encourage you to make a police report because you just never know if there's going to be more than one victim. Typically with a sexual predator, there's more than one victim. Okay, and that's a very hard thing to do. I can't even imagine. And this is something I talk about a lot and I'm very, very passionate about. So there's lots of numbers to call. And if you've seen the circle, the wheel that's on campus, the resource wheel, that's a great, great resource for anybody. And in the center of that is the Sexual Violence Center. And those women, Natalie and Michelle, do a great job of getting resources to the victims. Student Advocacy does a great job. Student Legal does a fantastic job. They can also advise you on what course of action to take.
And just in terms of what we can do, I will encourage you to make a police report, but I'm not going to bully you into it. So everything you say to me is confidential. So I can't call Cassie and say, I need to make a report. I'm not a mandatory reporter. We have attorney-client privilege, okay? But I am going to encourage you to. I'm going to offer to go with you. If you don't want me to go with you, I'm going to find someone, Natalie, the advocate on campus, who can go with you. I will do everything in my power to help you get connected with advocacy, to get excused from classes, to get help moving apartments so that you're not, if you're fearful in your own place, there are funds available for that. And all we have to do is pick up the phone. We have a direct line to those people. And I've gotten more than one student moved, locks changed, help with money. I've called police officers to Student Legal Services because I didn't want the victim to leave and they felt more comfortable staying, and I've met with the officers. I've gone to the police station. So those are all things that we do. We're not typical attorneys, so we will go beyond that. Cassie mentioned domestic violence. It is not accepted behavior. So we're talking about violence between two individuals who either live together or have children together, okay? It can be as much as a push up to a punch, a stab, a kick, anything. It is not accepted, and you will be arrested if it happens. So we don't want to get into a situation where it's been happening and you feel like you can't do anything because maybe back home you just don't talk about those things, okay? You can't tell your parents back home, you can't tell your friends, your circle is small. come talk to us. We're not going to tell anybody. Okay, if your parents call me and say, I need to know if my daughter or son has been in this office, I'm going to say, I can't talk to you. I don't even know who you are.
And if you make a report or they think that you did, and they call us for that information, we're going to say, they're 18 years or older. We can't just give that information to you. So also, I want, besides just the physical grabbing and touching, this verbal and psychological is very, very important to identify, because that's exactly how somebody keeps somebody in that situation. If you have pets, if you're financially dependent on somebody, if they know your self-esteem's a little low and they can talk you into feeling so horrible about yourself, you'll stay and put up with it. And it's just getting to the right person to give yourself a little strength to get out of it. And these guys have the great resources that can help you completely break from that situation. And we've dealt with that with international students quite a bit here at OSU.
Yeah, one specific situation that I had was a student, and it had been a history of violence. They came from back home together to come to college here. The violence continued, and when I talked to her, she just said, I can't tell anybody back home because our families have already met. And at that point, we're supposed to get married, and it's going to cause a problem. And then once she did gain the confidence to tell her parents, the other parents are putting pressure on those parents. And so we understand that. I'm not going to say to you, I don't know what your problem is. You need to tell everybody about this. We understand, but we're there to help you protect yourself. That is number one priority for us. And we work with OSU Police, CPD, the various campus partners to do everything that we can. So I encourage students, if something has happened in your relationship with a friend, a non-friend, a stranger, come and just talk. I will sit down and talk to you about, well, this happened last night. Do you think this was that? What do you think I should do? Do you know somebody I can talk to? Those types of things, okay? So we're pretty much out of time, and we made it through the slides. So we are here to help. We'll stick around for a few minutes if you guys have questions, but we do appreciate you taking the time out to come in and sit with us tonight. Go ahead.
So if you, like, in your neighborhood, sometimes you hear people, like screaming or crying through your walls, and then do we have the right to report or enhance that? I mean, we're gonna be, like good neighbors, but we concerned with their safety.
Well, that's a noise complaint, and that's a perfectly logical phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I hear my neighbors through the walls are yelling and screaming at each other. I believe there's children in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And there are officers trained to de-escalate situations. There are officers trained to go to that call, especially within the university setting. Our officers especially, because we are so accustomed to dealing with different international cultures, that while we might not have the perfect answer right off the bat, we can usually work a good way to something that's agreeable to both parties. Or sometimes they just need somebody to hear what's going on, and that's enough. And then if there can't be a good agreement, then we're going to separate people and we'll take course of action that way, without arresting anybody and without taking anybody to jail.
And it's important for you to make that call, because think about the person in that apartment. They may not be able to call. Okay, they may be in such a bad situation that they're afraid that if they call, something really bad is going to happen. So they may be being loud on purpose, so that somebody does call. Okay, we're playing a video in our lobby right now about Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and there's a video of a woman calling 911 to order a pizza. Okay, have you guys seen it? And so she knows that she's calling 911, and the operator is like, oh, can you not tell me why you're calling? And she says yes. So sometimes it's a cry for help, and you want someone to hear you so that they can call.
I have a quick question. How about if a graduate student is intimidated verbally by the professor? Because graduate students are paid by the professor, and some professor with a poor personality, or he or she is in a poor stage, financial stage, will express his anger to the inferior classes like his graduate students. He paid scholarship to them, especially for us internationals. He also helped us maintain the status in this country, and we feel that we can just do that and we cannot do anything.
That's where Title IX comes into play. that it's not just for women in sports, it's for fairness within our community. And if somebody is using their position to intimidate you, that violates policy. So Title IX, Kelly Brennan is who you would speak to on that, and that's information that anybody can get you. And you can report that and have it investigated and see if it's something that needs to be dealt with.
The Title IX
Title
coordinator.
IX coordinator, Kelly Brennan.
And you should always come and see us too, because we will not be able to help you, but we can tell you where to go.
Yes.
It doesn't happen to me, but it happens to
Yeah,
other students.
I've seen it
A
happen.
female student already being assaulted by the professor.
Yeah. So, and again, this is where student legal is great because they're a free resource to you all, and whether it's criminal or not, they know who to point you all to.
Okay? Thanks. You guys can come on up if you have questions. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.